A rover, this whole world over.
And the therapist, we had mentioned several times, and we'll be mentioning over and over again those 4 words. What upholds your existence?
As happy as me, you'll never see.
What are the defenses? There are major defenses, secondary ones, and a swarm of minor and supportive tactics, including plain old excuses, and they vary, interconnect, and cross lines according to personality, character, and general background. A breakdown. Flight, of course, is a major defense. You don't like something, you don't want to hear something, and there are many ways of doing it. It's not just running and hightailing, it's I don't want to talk about it.
Or just checking out.
Yeah. Checking out.
Or saying, I don't hear you.
I don't hear, whatever. It's all, we have a wide range of these
Don't
things.
say that.
But the typical is, I don't want to talk about it. That's like the wall is up and I'm not going to deal with you. Period, end of report. Fight. Violence, threat, hostility. My last office in Queen Anne was across the street from a liquor store, and at least 3 times a week there'd be several people out there, drunks, who would be cursing at one another, you know, and I would look out the window and just watch the same typical thing, you know, with one person cursing at the other, every vulgarity you could think of, and it was just watching the nature of the human being as they defend on one level or another. So there are many different ways of doing it, but it really comes down to you're trying to attack the other person, either verbally, physically, abusively, whatever way, in order to show that you are right. You want to be right. That's all that matters.
Most people are so trapped. It's so sad.
It is
They're
sad.
going to live their whole lives that way.
Yep, they do. Exactly. Which is why we're so ill. It all is part of the human mathematics of our society. Our society, and I'm being redundant here for those of you who've been in class with me over the weeks, we are the illest society in the world on all levels. We are not only the most depressed, we have 2.5 times as much high blood pressure, 4 times as much diabetes, 2.5 times as much heart disease and stroke, and 8 times as much obesity, and 400 times more drug use on a legal level. I'm not talking about street addicts here. I'm talking about the prescription.
They run the country. So.
Yeah, they control the country completely. So we're an ill society, basically, because of all of these things. Encapsulation, we encapsulate ourselves in numerous things. Work, making money, sex, driving cars, anything to escape what's going on and what we're feeling. We get involved in something over here so we don't have to deal with what's going on here. Overwork for people, they don't have to worry about what's going on in their family with their relationships or anything else there. We encapsulate ourselves in something else.
And it's like a real reason. It's like, oh, I have to work.
Well, absolutely.
So
It's,
they have this excuse.
Yeah, it's a perfect reason.
I heard a funny story last night of, I went to another meetup group of women, right? I knew, and it was a dinner thing. And I've never been there before, but the women, you know, it was multicultural. And one of the conversations of a woman who was in my age range, midlife, she's been dating, and she's been doing and she's professional. She's got a lot of background in nursing and different things. And what she said just blew me away about going on these dates with men, and they'll sit in the symphony, pull out their iPhones, and be texting. No, serious,
Yes.
and reading. It's more important to them, and this is, the defense is, this is my work, because she joked.
Right.
And this has happened multiple times. It wasn't just an anomaly.
It's also an example of the fact
Not
that
get close.
we lack social skills today. Never before have I seen such a total disregard for basic social skills among people. And part of it is the computer age, of course. It's removed us from the personalized type of communication, including writing letters, you know, salutations. Now that's all gone by the wayside. By the way, I'm not cutting anyone off,
No,
but
go
we're going
right
to move.
ahead. Sure.
Depression is also a great human defense. Millions of people use it. Instead of relating to their problems as human problems, even serious problems, even acutely serious problems, we become depressed. We take on the identification, I am depressed, or I am bipolar, or I am whatever it is the latest craze in America that the doctors have come up with a prescription for. It becomes a huge defense. All the addictions are defenses on every level. Confusion is a defense, of course. I don't understand. I'm confused. That's a great defense. By the way, honesty can be a wonderful defense as well.
How's that?
Well, I used to joke with my mentor, Jimmy Germano, who used honesty as a defense. You could turn to Jimmy in a group and say, Jimmy, I understand that last night you kind of went out and got drunk, and you came home and you started beating up on your wife, and then you turned over furniture, and then you went out, grabbed the car, and drove it into a damn building, knocking down the side of someone's home. Then you went out in the street raving, cursing, and you ended up all by being arrested, and I want to find out if that's true. And Jimmy would look at you and say, yes, and I'm very sorry. So honesty can be a defense. Some people, rather than attack, will simply cop to it, but there's nothing behind it other than
Isn't that
it's a clever one. It's
confession?
confession,
It's
you
sort
call
of,
it
here,
that. Yeah.
go and say, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Now I
Yeah,
can
but there's
go.
no meaning behind. Exactly.
Right.
Now, what else can you say? Now he's dismissed you. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah,
all. Leave me
that's what
alone.
they do in the church. I was raised with it.
Yeah. Blame. Intellect. Intellect is a great defense.
Yeah.
People think that they're really above it, that they've got a brighter mind, and they're almost looking at you as if, looking down at you as if to say, you really, shouldn't be, in the room with me.
Well, and that's all they think about. They think about
Yeah.
things they've learned, and they're in that world
Yep.
that keeps them totally occupied.
Yep, it's another encapsulation. Religion, of course, is a great, great defense for a lot of people. Joking.
Right.
There's some people do nothing but joke,
Yeah.
They deal with life as if it was a big joke. They'll laugh at you, and they'll never really be in touch with what they're feeling or what you're feeling. Honesty, I mentioned. Lying. Case building. Oh, case building is a great one. My brother, unfortunately, was a great case builder. With every time there was anything, he bought it. For instance, he buys a condo, and it's got a big garage about the size of this room, and he's checking the electric circuits, and he finds something wrong. To make a very long story short, instead of simply going to the condo management and saying, "There's something wrong here, can you?" he starts building a case about how they deceived him, how they lied to him,
Right.
how, in fact, there's a lot of problems in the whole electrical circuit that he's going to end up having to pay for. And he's got this,
Wow.
and that's how he goes into everything.
Yeah.
Case building.
Keeping score.
Interesting. That's what-
Score,
that's-
keeping score, another great one. Yeah, you can come up with them.
Uh-huh.
Every minute you'll come up with a new one. And sleep, of course, is a great defense. You just don't want to get out of bed. Secondary defenses, image, of course, threat, procrastination, impatience, moods, double thinking. I want to go back on that in a minute. Nastiness, intolerance, insensitivity, tuning out, and boredom. Double thinking is a defense, and one that most people are not even aware they're using. One of the ways in which we fail to really communicate with one another, and I'll give you an example. You walk into a party, okay, you're invited someone's home, and you don't know most of the people there, okay? And so you make contact with someone.
Yeah.
Now, immediately, the contact is registering on many different levels. Do I like this person? What are they like? What are their image like? Am I attracted to them? Do I want to bother with them? Let's say you're the man and you're looking for, a nice foxy young lady.
Well, that is a male
Yeah,
trait.
absolutely.
Hey, careful there.
I was just, I'm learning. Taking me a little
Yeah.
bit.
But what happens is,
The
okay,
female is a little different.
men and women are different. Tucker said specifically, men and women are equal opposites. And I'll go over that sometime, but yeah, it's a very true reality. But someone's coming over, say, okay, this nice person coming over, and you really aren't interested in him. So he introduces himself, and what you're doing, you're not really taking in, you're double thinking, you already know what he's saying, and you're going on, it's already past you. You're not even interested in it. You've already got your statement and what you're going to say before he even gets the words out of his mouth. And this is typical. We do not listen. We hear, but we don't really stop and listen and take it in. We go past it quickly.
Yeah.
The
So
way
it's
we go
not-
past information, the same way I said earlier about retaining information, we don't because we let it go past us. Oh, I understand that, so what's next? I understand it.
Yeah.
And then if I go back and I say, what do you understand? Do you even remember what I said?
Or my boyfriend would always get mad at me because he felt like I was jumping ahead. I was imagining the worst when he was confronting something. And so I wasn't really hearing what he said because I was making this story up and trying to defend myself against it.
Right. You're
That
double
wasn't even
thinking, right.
happening.
And that's
It's
double
double
thinking,
thinking,
and
huh.
sometimes we triple think. We get so far away from everything that we're not living in the now. We're not even looking at the person or paying attention to them. It's a defense, and it's one that,
So a breath.
it's,
This is a society that doesn't breathe.
no, of course not, We can get it.
Just
Last week we
stop
did
and
Should have been
breathing.
here for last
Last week, that's what we dealt with, is breathing.
Had I
We'll have to make a
known, I
makeup.
would have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Minor defenses: forgetfulness, lateness, carelessness, pettiness, rudeness, clutter, conspicuous behavior, condescendence, poor form, and lethargy. Whatever the range of defenses, and these are just some of them, there are hundreds of them, and combinations are endless, and we shift gears with them depending on where we are. Sometimes if we go somewhere else in a new neighborhood or a new setting, we might change our tactics a little bit. But
Excuse me, could you repeat, why is clutter a defense?
well, it's a way of not really looking at life, not really looking at yourself, just cluttering yourself. It's another way of not being involved in the here and now. You
Not
get
opening
home,
the mail.
right, you get home and you just got this mess here. So now you're involved in the mess. And you don't know what to do. You spend your time cluttered. And you spend your time not dealing with life. And you spend your time procrastinating. It's a total encapsulation in and of itself. You're not doing
So
anything else.
interesting. What about carelessness and forgetfulness, I guess.
But
That's what is known as a
Lateness.
Greek defense. Greek defense again. Both the Greek people, everything is tomorrow.
Right.
So it's their perfect defense. And I want to show you something now, since we hit on this, that shows you we're a microcosm for our greater society always. And I use the Greek people because I am Greek and I know Greek people. And I've lived in Greece for many, many years. I'm also a Greek citizen. Two of my children were born in Greece, etc., and so on. I speak Greek. So I speak with some knowledge of the Greek personality. In Greece, let's say you're sitting at your desk at work and you get a phone call. It's your close buddy, Yorgos. Yes, Yorgos, what is it? Tikanis. Crisis? Horrible stuff? What? You need to take, when? At 4 o'clock this afternoon, where? The Cafe Neon? Urgent? Of course, sure I'll be there. Don't worry, I'll be there. Your friend Yorgos is in trouble, you know. You get there
Show up.
15 minutes early, you show up, you get there. No Yorgos. 4 o'clock comes, no Yorgos. Quarter after 4, no Yorgos. You go back to your office at 4:30, you call up Yorgos, what happened? What do you mean? Well, you called me about this urgent need to get together with me. You've got a serious crisis. What's the matter? What? Oh, there's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
Now, let's take that.
That's so rude. That's like
Oh,
bunch of
absolutely. But let's take that
But what-
to here and now today in Greece.
Yeah,
What do you think is going on?
yeah.
All related to the same initial problem. They've finally been caught. Finally, the world woke up to what Greece was doing, screwing the world
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah.
lying, distorting facts and figures, manipulating,
Yeah,
stealing.
yeah.
Now, the other countries are sick and tired of it,
Uh-huh.
and they're even confronting, finally, to this day, not one single Greek, whether politician, lawyer, priest, nobody has admitted to anything. They're still in total denial.
Of course.
No, we don't do it. How dare you?
Denial
So we
is the
are-
name of a
yeah.
river.
Waste of
Yeah, but
time.
okay, but again, the main thing, we are the microcosm of
Yeah.
what we learn and what our society is about. So it all boils down to, we can only start with ourselves and dealing with ourselves and begin to work outward. Emotional blackmail, drama, rage, yes, but is another great defense. You know, you're listening? Yeah, but.
Right.
The but is like, you didn't say anything. Everything you said is invalid.
Right.
It can't count. And I don't want to talk about it. So it comes down to, what about us? What are our defenses? The only way we can change is to change ourselves, first and foremost. I always tell people that you start off from the standpoint of, I have to change without expectation from anyone else. The minute we begin to add up scores and say, I will only do it if you do it, we stop cold in our tracks. Whatever we do, if we believe in something, we have to do it without expectation. If I am kind and I want to be a kind human being, it's one of my commitments in life to be kind, I cannot do it because I expect other people to be kind. The only time that changes is when I go to Newfoundland and people are kind there, because the people in Newfoundland are kind, are normal. They would not be kind.
Yeah.
You would have to beat them down to make them even realize you're doing something wrong to them. They're such human beings that of a higher level and a normal level. So what are our defenses? I'll start by looking at mine. My nature, as I said, which was I was trained to be, was violence. So it's still within me. At least 12, maybe as much as 20 times a week, I feel violent. I feel like killing.
Whoa.
All the emotional memories are there. They're never going to be lost. They're triggered, as all things are triggered, by sense awareness. The way things work are through the senses. It's how the actor works. You hear something. For instance, I could put on a piece of music.
Calms
And
you.
or it can trigger off all sorts of emotional memories.
Yep.
I can put on one single piece of music, and that can trigger off hundreds of thousands of emotional memories. If you stop and think about numbers, how many experiences you've had in your life, you're talking about trillions. Trillions, literally. So one thing from our senses, any one of our 6 senses, can trigger off an emotional memory bank, and then the mind perceives it accordingly and makes a decision. So any number of things in a given week can trigger off my violent emotional memories, and then my mind perceives it, thank goodness, thank God, whatever, that over the years my mind has taken control so I don't act violently. But yes, I feel the violence, and it sometimes is a natural defense for me, because I can be very threatening with gestures, with my posture, and everything else. I've trained myself to not do it more and more and more, to control it more and more, by being kind, by being loving.
But are then you denying? Are you stuffing? Like, how do you?
You've got to balance.
process
You're
it?
balancing and adjusting all of those things. I'm still expressing my violence when I feel it emotionally,
Oh.
and I'm still expressing it on that heavy bag and in boxing, which I still am doing at the age of 76, and I still do it in hypnosis. So I find 1,000 ways of expressing those emotions without repressing and without hurting any other person. There are always ways in which you can learn to do it. By the way, more than 65% of my boxing class are women. So, yeah, you can learn to do it. The idea is to recognize what you're feeling and where it's coming from. So when I get in touch with violence, I know it has nothing to do with what's actually happening in that. It's from all those emotions over the years. It's similar to driving. You're driving along, minding your business. Suddenly it begins to rain, and the people in Seattle start doing strange things when it starts to rain, and they just don't drive in a normal fashion. And suddenly you're caught up in heavy traffic, and you're beginning to feel impatience and even what you might call a sense of rage. At the moment, what you're aware of is what's taking place with you behind the wheel of the car, right? No, what's happening is all those thousands of emotional memories about impatience and car rides and everything else is what you're really in touch with then, only you don't realize it. If you stop and realize, that's what's going on, boy, I'm in touch with all sorts of things. I'm in touch with that impatience I felt with people toward me as a child, in school, everywhere, that sense of impatience. And then I stop and it calms me. I can express that cleanly and say, ooh, that was a long time ago, but it's still there, but it's not here now. I'm okay now. Just get back to driving and being a patient driver, and don't worry about it. So if you can allow yourself to get in touch with the true source of what you're feeling, as opposed to thinking it's in the now, in this moment, and then getting caught up in that, you'll sooner be able to release that emotion, to let it go.
Yeah, Rodney Smith and a lot of Buddhist monks say, use it as an opportunity for an act of compassion and loving compassion to the other driver.
You can do that also, certainly.
He must be in a more of a hurry than I am.
And again, but you can sooner do that if you realize that it's not that driver that's really causing you the pain right now. It's just that it's connecting you to all those other moments. So when you make that kind of transition to it, then it's a lot easier to stop and say, be compassionate and be kind. But most of the time we're not. We're thinking really that this is the enemy right here and now.
Or we just react.
Or we react, just react, exactly. So that's my major defense. I could also use flight. I haven't done it in many years. If Nan and I would get into some problem, sometimes I just want to hide somewhere. Just get away from it, run from it.
Cave.
Cave, yeah. Bathroom, wherever. Take a walk, go out. Just be away from what's causing me pain. I'm trying to think of other ones that I have now.
And that's because when you were a kid, that's probably what you did,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. School was the same thing. I would constantly be a truant. I would just walk away, just walk into Coney Island, walk miles and miles away, get away from it.
So I heard that was another way of working and managing the anger and the previous, to be present, to say, I think this is old history. I'm going to go outside, remove oneself.
You can do it. Here's the trick with
positive thing.
All of these things have two sides. And you can find either the positive side to it or the negative side to it. But you have to look very carefully. The shadings are so complex. You have to really stop and understand yourself, the nature of your problems, the nature of your emotions, and see the way you work that really works positively for you, and then be selective. So those are my defenses. I've worked for 48 years on my primary ones. Image used to be a great defense. I think they tore it apart at Daytop Village pretty much, and I generally just am myself.
So you went there for research, but you ended up being...
I ended up being a semi-resident for a year. Yep, I went there to write a movie, and then realized I had me to deal with finally. It was about time I deal with myself. And
No
these
coincidences.
people were masters at it. That said everyone should have a Daytop. We all need it.
Yeah.
We can't do it on our own because we don't have the tools. We weren't given the tools, the knowledge. So you have to go somewhere to learn it. And Daytop was the place in which I got myself grounded. And then I turned my life around and went from show business into therapy. And that's been the case ever since, although I've managed to keep the show business part alive.
Really? What do you do?
Oh, I've produced all sorts of things, movies, plays, music, a lot of CDs.
In Seattle?
In Seattle, sure.
How long have you lived here?
13 years. No, more, 17 years now.
Oh. And you were in New York before then?
We were in Europe. We've been started in New York, then Greece, and then Canada, and then Los Angeles. God, the pits of the universe. Literally, I almost lost my soul there. Then back to Greece, then back to Canada, and then Seattle.
What caused all the moves?
A lot of different things. A lifetime. You'd have to read my autobiography. Because I've been very active all my life.
Do you have one?
Yes, I do,
Oh, okay.
actually. Let's go with someone else now. Your defenses. How would you see
Well,
your
I
defense?
was raised by a single father, and he's Norwegian. You know, the emotions were very suppressed. When my mother died, he never even took us to see her in the hospital. And, you know, it was, okay, just
How
move
old
on.
were you?
I was 10.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, he's a loving father, a wonderful man, still alive. He's 79 and very vigorous, but emotions are not his forte, and as a result, I got that in spades. And so my marriage recently ended. We had a problem expressing to each other her fear and my shame, and it caused this crevasse between the two of us, and shouldn't have. I mean, two loving people that should not have come apart. So, you know, that defense of stuffing, of stepping back, of removing myself from the situation, instead of confronting, being honest, understanding what I'm feeling. And I know that's what I've got to focus on. I've got to be able to get in touch with those and then be honest with my friends, my partner, whatever. And
Is it also you have an image of like being the good guy all the time because your
no.
dad's
If,
nice?
if,
or,
if anything, you know, it's one of those things that probably it's more inadequacy that I feel that others know better. Abigail's more in touch with her emotions, so she must be right and I must be wrong.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that
and-
doesn't work in a relationship
Right,
either.
right, yep. It's got to be equal to equal.
It's comparison,
Comparisons are rather
killers,
deadly.
right and wrong, good and bad.
Someone else, defenses, what, anyone?
I think I have used just staying away from it, because as a kid, it wasn't accepted to get angry. If I get mad at my sister and smack her line, of course, I was the one in trouble, no matter what the circumstances were. So I learned how to stuff it really early and continued to do that until the last few years, where I've gotten more in touch with it and learned ways to release it and deal with it, to even be aware of it. And I often read books and watched TV and did things to escape, to just occupy my mind. And I still do that occasionally. If I've had a really rough day, I'll just go home and be a couch potato for the evening. And it's sort of a defense against having to deal with whatever's going on. But yeah, things are a lot better now. I have really good relationships with all my kids and grandkids, and have dug around a lot in the emotional field to try and get at the stuff that's buried there. So.
I have a question about, because one thing that would come up a lot with my boyfriend, who is with 15 years, which I don't know what's happening to us now, but we're not living together. And he's really in touch with his emotions. And I grew up where, you're supposed to hide all the bad stuff, and I stuffed everything. And so even when I got a lot more in touch with things and realized, that he was allowed to be angry or whatever, I always feel like he's angry too long and too much. And after a point, it feels unfair. It's like he's angry, he has a much longer time in processing and letting go of his anger. And we know this about each other. But I would still always be like, aren't you done yet? Can we be happy? Can things be good again? That's why I asked before, where are those lines?
With each person and each situation, it's entirely different. If you see something like that happening, and the best thing to do is to say, hold on a minute for a second. Try to get in touch with where all of that anger is really coming from. Did it really happen because of this little thing over here?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like there's a massive amount of it going on.
Right.
Look back in your life. Where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
Try to get the person to do that.
He knows, he's actually really smart and he knows all that, but it doesn't
Doesn't
seem
mean he's going to do it.
Or it doesn't, emotionally, it doesn't still make it.
Again, you
poison.
do it, but without expectation. It's a long haul you're talking about with any human relationship, and each one, again, is going to be different. yeah, some people will go on and on and on
Mhm.
and they'll end up dumping. That's what is known as dumping. Instead of just expressing a feeling, you get to a certain point, now you're dumping it on the person.
Yes, he would bring up every
Yeah,
past thing
yeah.
that
So
I
now
ever
you're case,
did
now
to
you're
him,
now you're
instead of
case
putting
building. Now you're case building.
Case
So you see how,
building.
yeah, they do it. All these things then are shaped into this new kind of thing that you're being hit with, you know. And a lot of it's unfair, and a lot of it is just lacking in common sense and discernment, ability to balance and adjust things, because people, again, do not have the skills to do it. They don't know it. They simply think because they've got an education, they've got a thing called a mind and a brain up here, that they understand everything, but they don't. They're double thinking there also, and they don't understand. The training, basically, women have to retrain men. That's what it really comes down to in almost every relationship. I said a little earlier, Tucker's view of men and women, equal opposites. And most men do not understand this. They much less accept it. They can't even understand it, much less
A lot of
acknowledge
women
it.
don't either.
No, they, of course not, yeah.
No.
But it's important to recognize that men and women are essentially equal opposites. Women are more in touch with things on an emotional level, are more open to expressing themselves emotionally, more open to taking in emotions, more open to nurturing and caring and loving than men are. Men are closed, unfortunately, would rather not be emotional. They don't want to get caught up in it. They don't want to look weak. And they do not want to take in feelings from women.
What's weird is in my relationship, it was a little bit the opposite, because I grew up with very male models.
So there you have another different situation. So they're all different. Every single one is different. Every single situation, every single person, every kind of interaction between two people has its own nuances and shapes and shadings. And you have to read it for what it is and then go from there. There's no
Well, what is
one
it?
answer. If it was easy, I would have come up with a pill already. I've been doing it for 48 years and I'm still not there. I've got the foundation down now, and I'm there more than most people because I teach it. And that's, by the way, the best way of learning anything is to teach it. And then the foundation grows stronger and stronger. But there's no end to it. My friend Neil labeled it perfectly, the reservoir of the undone. And it's always there in all of us. And I'm 76 now, and I'm still chugging away at that reservoir of the undone each and every day. So don't look for it to suddenly, stop. The other part of it, as you really begin to deal with life, what naturally happens in the process, more obstacles pop up because you're more involved in the game of life. So more things are going to develop that you are going to be confronted with. Whereas the person who's hiding from life is going to, like the guy who's living in clutter, he's not going to go near those things. He's just going to stay within his world and nothing else. So you have to welcome all of that. You have to embrace that when it's happening in life and tell yourself, this is exciting. I'm going through changes. Wonderful, as opposed to just sitting here and not moving at all. Your defenses now, I think you cover them pretty much.
Oh, I wrote some down. I wrote arguing, denial, evasion, change topic, turn it on the other person, anger, contradicting, and then just, some activities. But I was thinking more like the interpersonal.
You got a good list to work on there.
Well, I'm a little bit evolved. I've done some work, but I still often have this baseline reaction to things that is just so ancient, and I know it's ancient.
Yep. What you've got to do is catch yourself each time and start off the day always with a nice long list of acts as if. I'm going to act as if I don't react that way. And remember, with the act as if, it's a process of change and learning, and it's a gradual process. Just like the actor, he's acting as if he's this character. He is not this character. But he wants to identify with the character because that's who he's portraying. So he acts as if he is this guy. Over a period of weeks of rehearsal, he begins to think like this character.
Well, that's like the fake it till you make it.
But don't use that one though. It's like it's because the actor is not faking, and
No,
he's not
for
pretending.
us, it's like we practice.
Right, but
until we
it's
get
different
it.
language. It's different language.
Yeah.
But here, precise language is really important for growth.
Yeah.
Certain language works very well. Act as if works perfectly in the mind. You visualize, and understand it.
Oh.
And it's not fake. Think of the actor.
Yeah, I get it.
Be the actor.
Mhm.
Slowly begin to think as if you are this person. And keep doing it, and the time element varies again with each person and each situation, just as it does with the actor, learning his lines and getting into character. Some people do it quickly, some people take ages. I jokingly told people about Dustin Hoffman on the set of Hook. I worked with Dustin for 3 months. Most actors in Hollywood, especially the good actors, need maybe 2 takes, the most 3. 4 is considered pretty outrageous because you're putting the company to a lot of expense and hardship. Dustin, with 4 simple words,
You'd get it. Right.
35 takes. 35 takes. Yep. Because that's the way it takes him a long time to get this. And my point is not to confront Dustin. I love you, man. No, Dustin is a sweetheart, wonderful gentleman. He treated us beautifully for 3 months. But my point is that with each person, the transition is different, just like learning anything. I bought bicycles for my children in Greece. They were all 3, 6, 9, and 12 years of age. 4 different bicycles. They hadn't ridden bicycles. So I had training wheels on them. And I watched with each child how long it took. My 6-year-old looked at the training wheels and said, "Take them off, Dad."
Yeah.
I said, "No, you can't ride." She said, "Take them off." All right, take them off. So she stumbled, but 60 feet away, she's riding the bicycle.
Wow.
So her act as if transitioned quickly into thinking as if and feeling as if, and was the older sister needed the training wheels, and when I took them off, it took her about 5 weeks to be able to ride the bike. So it's different with each person. So the act as if, think as if, ends up becoming the feel as if in its own time and place, and then it's real. But it's not pretense, it's not fake. Never think of it that way. It's for real. Just like the actor is not pretending. He's identifying with that character because that's the only way he's going to live that character on the stage and be able to carry it off. So you use the act as if in all of these areas of change, when it comes to every area of life, and certainly when it comes to dealing with your defenses. Act as if you're not impatient. Act as if you're the most patient person in the world when you're driving a car. Now I'll go back on that one. Again, you've heard this, but we're in Newfoundland in 2008 for 6 weeks. My soul resides in Greece. My heart resides in Newfoundland. And in Newfoundland, I'm a different human being. I am so totally relaxed and at ease and calm and peaceful. So we finished the vacation, we're on the plane, a man is beside me, and we're flying, and I look at her, I can see she's very pensive, really preoccupied, and I wait some time, and I turn, I say, "Honey, what you thinking about?" And she looks at me and said, "You know, for the 6 weeks we are on vacation here in Newfoundland, I've never seen you like this in our entire marriage, over 41 years at that point." She said, it was so easy being with you. We went to restaurants, there were no problems with me. No one in my family would go to a restaurant with me here. I lose patience entirely, service with the ambiance, food, everything. And she says, "But there you were just, it was so wonderful." And she's looking at me with pleading eyes. and I said, "Well, that's because we're in Newfoundland, you know." And she looks at me and says, "But we live in Seattle, USA."
Right.
Yeah.
So she's really saying, "What are you going to do?"
Yeah.
And finally she looks at me, and I swear this is exactly how she took my hand and said, "Nickolas, won't you please become my goofy newfie?"
Yeah. There you go.
So she's asking me at the age of then 72 and a half to do what I had never been able to do in my life, be a patient human being.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, honey, I will become patient." So from that moment on, I started acting as if, and to make a long story short, took approximately 13 weeks to transition into becoming patient. Now, my family often jokingly says, "You're much too patient." So the act
It's not
is if,
fun anymore.
no,
It's boring.
and it works. It works, but you have to go through the stages. You can't test it and say, "Well, it doesn't work because I haven't become this right away." Your defenses.
Well, I've probably been through all of them in my life so far.
Currently.
Currently, Well, it's interesting, when I get the spotlight on me, my tone goes down, that's probably a defense. Lateness, maybe, because I want to get the emotional hit before I do it. You know, I sort of, and I want to, you know, I think my life is this way. Well, yeah, I'm, you know, gonna do that. You know, I didn't plan. I mean, what, landmark education, I took that years ago around the corner. They used to, you know, you had, when you commit to taking something, you're there. And it's your own integrity to yourself and the other people that you respect them. And, you know, I'm more colors, with, you know, reasons. And yeah, there's some other, I am probably maybe too kind to myself. I don't know what else. Clutter, I was thinking about that as you. I think it is a fine line, because I'm an artist, you know, and in order to be creative.
I have a lot of stuff too.
Right, I like to have, you know.
Stimulation.
Well, I might like to bounce around from different projects. Do you know that? Because creativity, the way that I work, comes, you know, you have to step back from a painting and give it space over years sometimes, you know, or something, you know, that you're doing. And that cannot be the organized balls. Sometimes it is. What other defenses do I use? Oh, the weight of taking on the family history. I use that as a defense, you know, of why I don't do something. And I have it viscerally in my space. Things.
You're rejecting the family history, so
No, I'm living with it.
Okay.
And that becomes a defense of why I can't live my life really with what I want to do.
Oh,
You know,
okay, so
because
it's
I've got the
It's
weight.
an obligation. You have to carry on.
Well, what am I gonna do with all this stuff? Letting go, not letting go, you know?
Storage.
Well, yeah, bingo.
But anyway, it's
That's
probably a whole
exactly,
other
that's a
topic.
very simple thing. So I think those are defenses.
Mhm.
And now I love what you said, that when you live more out there in the world and you're working on, you know, continual, people show up in our lives that are, sometimes for this, that are very much like our family unit. If we're trying to heal those, so they sort of, you know, or we go the exact opposite way, but now I'm getting a lot of these, whoa, do you know, what's that about? And I'll give distance, you know, not pick up the phone, screen the calls a little of, well, I don't feel like talking to that person because they're
Would you
intense.
say you're overly careful, cautious?
No, only with abusive people.
I want to stop for a minute,
Yeah.
just time and point out
Sure.
something that's important here. Several times earlier I've mentioned how we could all use a daytop. One of the things that you got at daytop, which we do not have the opportunity of getting beside the knowledge, that's one whole reality, just the actual conceptual knowledge and the tools of how to do things, is feedback. At daytop you got feedback constantly. You were constantly confronted. So when we would do something like this, and later on when I formed my own therapeutic community called Journey, we would do that usually after 4 or 5 weeks in a particular group with people. We would ask everyone to first describe their personal image, how they saw themselves, then how they thought others saw them, and then actually ask for the feedback from everyone how you actually saw me.
Scary.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was,
Mhm.
and it could be very painful because
Yeah.
people would look you in the eye and tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And for many of people, it was scary to finally, and hard to take that in, because
Yeah.
you've been pretending you're this other person for so long, and suddenly someone's saying, you know what, you're transparent like the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't hid from me. I've seen you all along. The only reason you think you've won out somehow is because no one has been honest enough to look you in the eye and tell you the truth. And by and large, people don't give us the honest feedback that we need. But we do need feedback, and then on the defenses, we need it there also, because very often what we think are our defenses, we really believe, but someone will turn to you and say, you know, well, what I see is this. Well, that's not me. Well, that's what I see. You know, take it in. And
Yes,
That's where if you had involved parents who could help shape you,
Yeah,
you know,
if-
when you're
Yeah.
young, it would be
Yeah.
like, oh
Yeah,
my
it would be
God.
wonderful, right? But
Perfect parents.
it didn't happen. We're going to move quickly now to get through this. Dropping your defenses, recognize and acknowledge what they are and how and when you use them.
yeah.
The cause and effect patterns and their immediate and long-range consequences. Take a look at what the defenses really bring out in you. We think they're working for us, but in truth,
They work
No,
against,
no, no.
yeah.
the people who I have met throughout my life, who I really feel, believe, think, and see have succeeded, are people who drop their defenses entirely. I've mentioned, and not to name drop, but I mentioned Steven Spielberg here, working with him on the set of Hook for 3 months. What was amazing, besides his talent as a filmmaker, that's known, the most amazing thing about Steven Spielberg was the fact that the garbage man could be cleaning up something and walk over to Mr. Spielberg and go, Mr. Spielberg, I got an idea for you for this movie here. Any other director, much less A directors, would turn to their assistant and say, get rid of this. Someone telling me to, Stephen, you got what? Tell me. And he's not double thinking, he's really listening. You could see it like a little child. He's listening. And I like that. Let's do this. Let's try it. That's Stephen's. The open being. Because then your imagination is alive, like the child. Einstein did it the same way when Einstein was asked about his talent as a theoretician, mathematician, cosmologist, etc. He would say, no. That's knowledge. Knowledge is not nowhere near as important as imagination. And you cannot be imaginative and be open when you're closed, when you're defensive. You're losing that opportunity. Whether you're the creative artist or the intellectual or whatever, unless you drop down those defenses, you're going to be closed. Your imagination will not work on the level you're capable of seeing it work at. You might think it's working, you're nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. All the people who've managed to do that are the people who really make it in life on levels that are almost unimaginable. So you have to think along the lines of dropping it and not being afraid that if you drop the defenses that you are going to be taken advantage of by other people. Nowhere have I ever said, including when we talk about expressing emotion, that you should not use common sense and discernment. Common sense and discernment walk hand in hand with all of the concepts and tools. So you can drop the defenses entirely, at the same time common sense and discernment. Such as when I was walking on that street and that guy is flailing at the sky. Now when I walked away, supposing this guy actually came at me and pulled out something, what am I going to do? I am going to defend myself, and violently if I must. So we can always have common sense and discernment. That should not be an excuse, that if I drop my defensive, I'm going to be unprotected, I'm going to be, No.
Yeah.
No. Steven Spielberg is not defenseless out there simply because he's paying attention to what others are giving him as feedback on some level. And he wants to take it in constantly. He did this, and it's so wonderful to see. Commit yourself to deal with change using primary concepts such as what upholds your existence, the primary concept which I speak of again, Tucker's language. What upholds your existence? not what should I do, where should I go, how should I do it, when should I do it. That's what journalists learn in school, to write a story. This morning at 6:15 there was a fire at 499 North 36th Street, and the fire department responded in journalists learn what, when, why, how, where. That's not the way to really look at life and examine things and open yourself up. The way to do it is with the 4 words, what upholds my existence? Whenever you have any question, any decision to make in life, what upholds my existence? What lifts up, raises me? My existence, not just in this area, but my existence. Those 4 words, when you learn them, when you allow them to be formed as a foundation in your life, as a conceptual foundation, it will change your life.
I don't understand.
Using those
What
4
does
words,
uphold my existence?
you have to do, what you have to sit down and figure that out. What upholds your existence? To express emotions in a normal, healthy way, to
I guess I'm not
exercise.
understanding the word uphold.
Uphold, lift up, uphold, hold up.
Yeah, okay, that's a little.
Yeah, that's a little lofty, but that's why it's meant to be. It's meant to make you think that way, to open up your imagination. And
Like,
when you,
what is the best part of your life? What makes your life better?
whatever
What's
you
your
believe
reason?
in, whatever you know, whatever you want, whatever is you, your beliefs, your foundations. And if you're questioning that, then you have to stop and say, well, maybe I don't know. And I got to spend more time figuring out what upholds my existence, which is, again, why you need the language, those 4 words to use as opposed to any other language. When you ask yourself that question, what upholds my existence, the mind begins to generate all sorts of different channels and pathways. Suddenly, we're no longer relating to yes or no, good or bad, right or wrong, black or white, God, devil, Republican, Democrat, the polarized way. So this is another way of saying, in the absence of language uphold existence, we have the polarized language. The yes or no is good or bad, black or white, one way or the other. Our mind thinks that way. We have 2 choices. No, we have 1,000 choices.
Right.
And the only way we're going to recognize those choices and see their viability is by using the language which is appropriate. What upholds my existence? I tell you again and again and again, learn to use those 4 words and you'll look back on your life over a period of months and years and say, my life is changing. I would not have done those things the way I'm doing them now had I not incorporated those 4 words into my life. Act as if we covered more language, a tool that works. It is the way in which we learn everything, the way in which we change. Act as if, think as if, feel as if, become. From the time we're children, we learn that way. Potty training. Everyone's got different philosophies about how to train a child, but it still comes down to, at some point, you're going to take the child and put him on the seat, and it's going to have to learn, and the child's going to begin acting as if. It doesn't know what it's doing. And slowly it's going to begin to think as if, after a couple of weeks or whatever time it takes that individual child, oh, I got to poop, so pee, I'm supposed to go, oh, no, I know, I got that toilet place, thinking as if now. Mm-hmm. And then over a period of time, it's natural, the child will do it the rest of his life. Act as if, think as if, feel as if. That's the way we learn everything. And that language is the language to use because the mind can see it clearly and visualize it and respond to it. Balobachi, a Hindu term, another Thakar term, meaning love. We speak of love, and all too often our love is very limited to the romantic or the sexual or just the affection, whatever it might be. And love is a wonderful word. I use it frequently. But my mind has to be focused on Balobachi, which translates into, I live in your good. More language. I live in your good. Merely telling my wife, Nan, I love you, that's wonderful. But if I stop and say, I live in your good, Nan, then what does that mean in terms of my actions, what I do? And Tucker said something else which was so to the point. Love before you speak of love. Love before you speak of love. So we're talking about actions, not merely a word that Western society has grown to use, in a romantic way. But Balabashi, I live in your good, means so much more. If I live in your good, I will do that which is kind. I will do that which is thoughtful, which is meaningful. I will really go out of my way. My wife leaves early in the morning. She works in Bellevue. I get up later. I look in the sink. She's left dishes and things. And my first reaction, again going back to childhood, is, I don't want my, Nan, why'd you leave me? Blah, blah, blah. But I live in your good, honey. I'm going to do it, clean up, absolutely. And I'm going to be aware also, you're going to come home and you're going to say, Nick is so kind. You're right, I am. You see how it all interrelates? NLP, language, I don't like the term NLP. It's concocted as a fancified idea of language. And again, I really believe the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. The word language suffices. Neuro-linguistic programming, it makes it out to be this fancy thing in the brain with all sorts of transmitters and things going on. Language is language. If we think of language in simple terms, we learn words as children. Hello, goodbye, yes, no, mama, daddy. Then we begin to learn sentences and phrases. And then we are sent to school and the disaster begins to happen in our life with language. We are suddenly aware of grammar, punctuation, English, spelling, an array of different things, and we're tested. Instead of someone sitting with us and saying, hey children, the reason we're in this class together dealing with subjects like English and punctuation and the rest is to communicate what we're feeling and what we are about and what we care about in life. It's a communication. It has to have meaning. That's what it's really about. They didn't do that. Suddenly language becomes a test, polarizing us again, how smart we are or dumb, comparing ourselves to the other people who seem to understand it better than I. I didn't understand the difference between an adverb and an adjective and a verb. Sorry, didn't. Took me longer. I eventually became a professional writer, great, but I didn't understand those things, but I was made to look like a dumb idiot because I couldn't define them for the teacher's satisfaction. I became a great communicator with language on stage, instinctively, which is the way it should have been taught in the first place. So language is words, and remember, all the words and phrases and the rest build into something much different. They become attitudes, they become much stronger. Now you say something, when my father died, I said, it's dog eat dog in this lousy world out there. I thought I was being clever. An attitude. Then later on, the attitudes become even stronger. They become beliefs. Belief has power. And eventually, they become values. We live by them. And we never stop to look at our language, to stop and say, hey, my language is inappropriate, ineffective, negative, destructive to me and to others. And language has different slants to it for different people and different things and places. Everyone has a different language for different things. For instance, people in prison have prison language. People addicted to things have language related to that addiction. Depressed people have language. I'll show you how destructive that is. I am depressed. The nature of the word itself is destructive, as opposed to I have a human problem, or a lot of problems, or serious problems, which I can deal with. Instead, I am depressed.
I am sick.
I am sick.
Yeah.
Or I'm very depressed, very sick. I'm severely depressed, severely sick. Or I am clinically, that word clinically makes you're really finished. You're a clinical case now. That's how destructive words can be, language can be. And we don't stop to say, this is what we're fueling our mind with. Language is fuel. And because we never do that, we don't make the changes that would uphold our existence. What upholds existence is positive language, healthy language, language that makes you want to grow and move forward. Not language that pulls you down and traps you in your melees and in your clutter and in your mindless behavior because you've been doing it for so long. Hypnosis works, and I hope for those of you who haven't taken hypnosis, that the class that you're staying for the class, because hypnosis is a key to working on language. In hypnosis, we work on emotions and language primarily. Problem solving 101. There is such a formula. We've gone over it. We'll go over it again. You have to learn how to actually solve problems. We're not taught that in school either. Simple formula, which I learned at Daytop, how to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why doesn't everyone teach that? They don't.
You're gonna tell us that another time?
Yes, because that's a 45-minute thing.
Oh.
Deal with the here and now. The here and now, living in the now, that term, we all know from the book, people carry that book in the back pocket like a Bible sometimes, but the problem with living in the now is that for many people we don't have a now to live in. Or now is so destructive, what's the point of saying living in the now? So for many people it's a matter of creating a now to live in, not merely using the term. Dealing with other people's defenses. There is no alternative to human confrontation. I absolutely believe this. Something else I learned at Daytop. As always, with common sense and discernment, but you must stand up for what you believe in, and you must confront people. If you do not confront, then how can you look in the mirror and say you are true to yourself and are a healthy human being? I confront whenever I need to confront, and do not back down. It is a vital link to feeling self-esteem as a human being. James Cagney said it perfectly when asked about his remarkable talents as an actor, what he did that was always so wonderful. And he says, just 3 simple things. I stand on my marks, look the guy in the eye, and tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Pretty simple, with a direct line. Doesn't mean you're going to bash them in the head or shoot them, threaten them, but you tell the truth.
That's great.
Confront without expectation, using common sense and discernment. Confront because it is correct to confront, it is healthy to confront, and it is you need to. But without expectation. Don't expect the person to love you or agree with you. But always remember, when you confront someone, no matter how they act at the moment, no matter how defensive they are, you do not know what's really going on inside of them, and you do not know what that might trigger in the future for them. Another reason to confront, because it might eventually get that person to see themselves in honest light and to be able to change. Any questions?
Yeah. So back to the number 2 in the list you have of different ways to act as if with those great
Which one specific?
techniques. All of them, okay?
This number 2 here?
Yeah, that one.
Commit yourself to deal with it,
Yeah.
change, using primary concepts and tools.
Yeah.
These are
So-
all the primary concepts and tools to use, starting with the concept of what upholds my existence. Train yourself to simply ask that question at every turn, as opposed to asking, what should I do, which will only polarize things and put you in left field or right field. Use the act as if constantly, as a way of dealing with all problems, all changes, all defenses. Act as if you are patient. Act as if you do recognize the other person's feelings. Act as if the other person's perceptions have a place also. Act as if you are a kind human being, although you don't feel like being kind. Act as if, draw up a list of your acts as if, and work on them consistently. That word consistently is so vital to the uphold of existence. You cannot uphold existence if you're not consistent in the things you want to do, including diet, exercise, all the healthy things. Act as if it don't matter what you feel, you'll still exercise. Act as if it doesn't matter how you feel, you're still going to be confident as a human being and do what you have to do, rather than waiting for inspiration. It's like the creative person. Stanislavski said it perfectly when students asked him, how can I be inspired to work? And his answer was so simple and precise, you must work in order to be inspired. The person who's waiting to feel inspiration or confidence or self-esteem is not the person who moves ahead in life.
So it's that saying, inspiration likes to find you hard at work.
It's what was the other saying that they used? Inspiration is I think Edison said it, 90% hard work and 10% perspiration.
Perspiration.
Something like that, if I didn't say.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is no such feeling, by the way, as confidence, self-esteem, and inspiration. Those are not feelings. That's where we make a great mistake. We think
Why
they're
isn't
feelings.
confidence a feeling?
It's not, it's a thought, it's an idea. It's
Oh.
a point that you arrive at as a result of doing things consistently over a period of time and having so much experience that now you know you're capable of doing it. And you won't matter what you feel.
So it's a way to be.
It's a
not
way to be,
feeling.
it's not an emotion. The actor, Yul Brynner did it perfectly. He was interviewed by Johnny Carson, and he was asked about being the king in The King and I, and he had done the performance over 3,100 times in the movie. And Carson said to him, "You must be pretty confident when you do this now. You must really feel comfortable." And Brynner looked at him and said, "Oh my God, no. In fact," and he said this is exactly what he said, "in all 3,100 performances, 20 minutes before that knock on my door, I go to the bathroom and vomit."
But maybe that's Pavlovian in a way.
Well, don't make it so.
Learned to-
What he was meant
Does he
was,
need to
it
do
meant
that
is,
every time?
he meant I'm still scared. I'm not. My confidence is in knowing I will. Once the music starts, I will get out there and I will be the king and do a wonderful job. That's what true confidence is. The awareness of who you are and what you can do, not an emotion. If you wait for the emotion, you'll wait all day. Steven Spielberg does not sit and wait for his confidence. People I know who have beat cancer did not wait to feel inspired to beat cancer. They had to go out and do it. I had a student, a young man, came to me, one of my first students in acting in my repertory center in New York City back in the 60s. He had supreme confidence because you could see it every time something important was happening. He would just pull in everything from everyone else. He had such confidence that he was a member of the Joseph Papp's Shakespearean Festival as an extra holding a spear in the play Coriolanus for 3 hours doing nothing, but doing it beautifully, confidently. 2 years later, he was Coriolanus. That's what confidence is about, not waiting for an emotion or inspiration. It's not an emotion. Emotions are things like anger, pain, fear, joy, laughter,
So on that note, have you heard of RC Co-Counseling? Harvey Jenkins?
I really, to be honest with you, I never, it's been years since I've been introduced to things like that. I don't look
It's
at the books.
releasing emotion that is trapped in us, and just using some techniques.
Acting, purely Stanislavski.
Well,
All those come
without
from
words,
Stanislavski.
But without words, it's just,
You can do it silently,
yeah, it's like fear is by shaking,
absolutely.
or the opposite of, what was anger is laughing.
All techniques, and there are hundreds of them, they're all great.
Uh-huh.
Use as many as you can. Whatever upholds your existence, use it. As a technique,
There we
as a
go,
tool.
Whatever upholds your existence, yeah.
With knowledge, that's always
Yeah.
what comes in. That's what, again, if I could to close this out now, if you can learn those 4 words and really use it in your life, what upholds my existence, I guarantee it will change your life. Because it will open up your mind. Your mind will begin to do things that it will not otherwise do because of the language barriers we've created. And that yes or no, good or bad stuff, what polarizes us as a nation, why we can't solve any problems or any of the issues, none, nothing, and why our candidates don't even relate to them anymore because of that kind of thinking. If Obama had had any common sense and knew what upheld existence, he could have turned this country around the day he was inaugurated, but he didn't relate to what upholds existence. He related only to his politics, and that is where it failed and started going down the drain. So relate to what upholds your existence, and it'll take you a lot further than anything else you can possibly imagine, conceptually and otherwise.
From God's on board, each day I die. From the Bering Straits to Palestine, this spring, this brook will ring the bell. no need of wealth. You're in God's hotel.
One should know though was Christ's motto, so do the same. Let heaven flow. No pills, no